Well, wasn't that exciting? Back to chapter 9. Let's kind of go through each of these chapters and hit some of those important things that you may have missed in the reading. So, John is chasing Jeffrey to try to beat him up in chapter 9 because he can't let this kid, this little runty, out of nowhere kid, make him look bad, and it made him mad. So he starts chasing him all over town, him and his so called gang, the Cobras. Ridiculous. But anyway, and throughout the running, he says things like, I'm looking at the bottom of the page 31, where he talks about running past, whizzing past a blur of faces, each face staring out from its own window, each face in its own personal frame, its own house, its own address, someplace to be when there was no other place to be. How lucky to be a face staring out from a window. That line is so important because it emphasizes this idea of Jeffrey being so unhappy with the fact that he's homeless, and he has no place to go. We all want that place that we can go to, that safe place that we can call home and return to at night or go to when we're having a bad day. Um, they stopped chasing him once he crossed Hector Street. Now, very often, I mean, we're kind of programmed and trained to not discuss people's race because it's considered rude and impolite. But in the case of this piece of literature, it's really important. This is set before Martin Luther King, before Rosa Parks, before the Little Rock Nine. And so this town is completely segregated. And when they get to Hector Street, the Cobras and John McNabb stop chasing Jeffrey, even though he continues on across Hector Street and to the other side of town. This town is divided into two halves, the white side of town and the black side of town. And kids tend to get this mixed up, East End, West End. The way you remember it is the alliteration, West, white. The white kids live on the west side of town. The black kids live on the east side of town, West, white. So John McNabb and his gang all are from the west side of town. That makes them white. Okay. And Jeffrey takes off running. So the Cobras were laughing because they figured a dumb, scraggly runt would get out of the East End in about as good a shape as a big toe in a convention of snapping turtles. They figure he's going to get what's coming to him by being a white kid running across into the black end of town. Because remember the way people thought during this time period. And we talked about that a lot with the Little Rock Nine. Into chapter 10, we meet another character, a young man by the name of Mars Bar Thompson. Sorry, my pages are falling out of my book again. Mars Bar is this big, tough kid from the east side of town, which makes him black. And he keeps, you tell me I'm bad. I love that whole scene. It's just hilarious. We'll get to that in just a second. I'm going to kind of go through this in order here. So, is Mars Bar his real name? No. I mean, I can't imagine some newborn child. Oh, look at my cute little Mars Bar. No, that's just silly. It's a nickname they gave him because he carries around this big old Mars Bar candy bar, like a big old stogie, a cigar in his mouth. And he offers him a bite, which is weird anyway. But then the fact that Jeffrey took a bite, not only took a bite, but white kids just didn't put their mouths where black kids had theirs, be it soda bottles, spoons, or candy bars. And the kid hadn't even gone for the unused end. He had chomped right over Mars Bar's own bite marks. That's weird in and of itself, but the fact that he's a white kid doing this with a black kid tells you something about Jeffrey. He's obviously not prejudiced at all. He doesn't care. He just sees this as another kid offering him a candy bar, and he's like, okay, whatever. Mars Bar was confused, but he also got really mad. You know, he's like, tell me I'm bad. You think I'm bad? We don't use the word bad so much anymore. We use it in conjunction with another word that we're not allowed to say in school. I'm going to abbreviate here, BA, bad, insert bad word, A, BA. He's really tough. He's really cool. He's like amazing. And he wants Jeffrey to, sing him his praises, so to speak. And I love Jeffrey's never heard this term before, and he's like really confused. And he's like, I don't know if you're good or bad. That's up to your mom and dad to decide, which just makes Marshbar all that more mad. And so he takes this book away and starts calling Jeffrey Fish Belly, which is a weird thing to call him. But if you've ever been fishing, and that's one of the comprehension questions, was a fish's belly is white. And so he's really kind of slamming Jeffrey for being white, especially since he's in the black half of the town. And this elderly lady just kind of puts his broom down in front of them when they're nose to nose, like, knock it off, go home. I don't have time for your nonsense. And then tells this little scrawny white kid, you better get yourself on home because I don't have time to be chasing you around and making sure you're safe. Go back to where you belong. And he said he stood there a minute. There was something he felt like doing. Maybe he would have, but the lady turned around and went back inside her house and shut the door. So he just walked away. He probably felt like wrapping his arms around her, giving her a big old hug and thanking her, but she didn't give him a chance to do that. Now in chapter 11, now what? He's got this book with this crumpled page. The fact that Amanda carries her books around in a suitcase to protect them from her little brother and sister, it's not going to go over well that he's going to return a book in this condition. So then, let's see. He's got this torn out page of this book, and Marshbar is like still coming after him because he's not done, because bullies never are done. And Amanda comes up and saves the day. I love her. This is one of the chapters that just kind of shows how sassy and how strong and how tough this young girl is who loves books in this neighborhood. She's like, you did it, you lie. I can just see her swaggling her head and just really copping an attitude with him. I love my favorite lines. I got a little brother and sister that crayon all over my books, and I got a dog that eats them and poops on them, and that's just inside my own family. And I am not gonna have nobody else messing with my books. You understand? Meanwhile, she's like kicking at him, emphasizing each word, and just he runs off because he doesn't know how to handle this girl. Love it. But then she flips the switch like that, just so quick. And she goes from this tough, sassy, streetwise kid to holding this crumpled page in her hands like it's a bird with a broken wing. And just, it was one of my favorite pages. And just to show that kind of depth of her character is just so cool. Amazing. And she invites Jeffrey, back to her house, which is pretty amazing. Again, this is the time of segregation. The fact that she's inviting this white boy back to her house says something about who she is, too. It's pretty cool. So, we're going to meet Amanda's family next time. I'm glad you stopped by. Put some comments in the class comment section so we can have a conversation about what you read today. What are you thinking? Which characters do you like? What do you think is going to happen when Jeffrey goes to her house? Are we done with Marshbar? Are we done with John McNabb? Let's find out. Let's have a conversation in the comment section, okay? All right, I'll see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone. Be kind to one another.